Hello, everybody. Welcome to Freelance Chat. It's Michelle here, and I'm so glad to be back. And we have a very special guest today, Ed Gandia. Thank you for being here, Ed, and welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate you inviting me.
I'm so excited to have you here. You are somebody I have followed and known, and of course, you were on the chat when it was on Twitter. We were just talking about that beforehand. Let me mute this. Hold on. All right. Okay. And yeah, so I'm just so excited that you could be here. You are somebody that I follow and trust your advice, and I think that you share a lot of great wisdom for freelancers to follow.
Thank you.
And why don't you just tell us a little bit about, your background and what you've been up to lately, and just anything that you want to share before we get started. And our topic today, by the way, is maximizing our marketing efforts as freelancers. So we will be getting into our topic with our questions, but first, let's chat with Ed for a few minutes.
Sure. So I'll give you a quick intro based on, I think, around the topic, just so everyone has a little bit of context if you don't know me or have heard about me. I came from the world of corporate sales back in the 90s. And for a long time, actually, every employer that I had, every company I worked with, really didn't do a good job of giving me the marketing and sales materials I needed to do a good job. My performance was always under the microscope. I worked in situations where you had to make numbers every quarter. If you don't make your numbers, you're not going to have a job. So I had to get really creative to be able to perform well. And I started writing my own materials. And I'd never done that before, but I would read books, I would experiment. And you know what? A lot of this stuff that I tried worked. A lot of trial and error, but it worked. And I had no idea that people got paid to do this. Eventually, I figured it out. And I thought it would be so cool if I could do this as a freelancer, which is what I started building a freelance business on the side while I kept my full time day job in sales. And eventually I built it to a point where I was able to quit my day job in 2006. And I was very successful right out of the gate. Successful for a couple of reasons. I think number one, I worked really hard. There's no getting around the hard work. But two, I had been practicing this stuff for a long time, and I came to it with a sales mentality, kind of a business mentality, and that served me really, really well. So, fast forward to 2012. For the previous couple of years, I had been helping people because they had seen my rapid success as a freelancer. They would reach out to me with questions, requests for advice, tips, ideas. And I had published a few things to help others, some of which were free, some of which I sold. I had written a book on this stuff. And I decided in 2012 to start coaching, business coaching. And I still had some writing clients in 2016. I let my last client go, mainly because they got acquired. So I said, well, this is a great time to break off from here. And I've been doing business coaching full time ever since there. My audience is freelance writers, solo marketers, and yeah, I just help them earn more in less time doing work they love for better clients. That's really my focus. But the reason I tell you all that is just to let you know that, hey, I've been a solo marketer, copywriter for a long, long time. The first few years, I did it to put money in my pocket and food on the table. I was a sole breadwinner for many years in my family. So, it wasn't like, oh, I lost this client. That's terrible. It's like, no, I need this stuff has to work. Otherwise, we don't eat kind of thing. Um, so I came to it with a sales mentality. To me, marketing just felt like really the first phase of selling, because I thought if you do a good job with the marketing, whether you're marketing yourself or you're helping a client do a better job marketing, that just makes a sales process so much smoother. And So for me as a freelancer, marketing has always come first. I quickly realized that if I was good at marketing, I could get away with being a decent or just a very good copywriter. And I feel that's what I was. I don't want to downplay it. I was a very good copywriter. I still am, but I wasn't, at the top. And that's okay. If you are at least very good, you can do really, really, really well, even in a difficult economy, if you get the marketing piece right. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an inspiration, of course, when people have been doing it for so long successfully like you have done, because, a lot of people are newer or just getting started, or they had a year where they struggled, or, what have you. So I think it's really important to remind people that there is success to be found. And, it's always, I think we're always tweaking, like our positioning, our marketing as freelancers. Anyway, I feel like
Hmm.
that.
True.
So yeah, so we're gonna be talking about how to maximize our marketing, because I think another thing that happens with freelancers is we're just like pinballs sometimes, like all over the place. And I kind of feel like, you have to figure out who you're gonna trust for advice, and then, kind of follow that advice, and maybe tune out some of the other advice. I mean, not tune it all out, but I think you have to be careful about who you listen to. So, let's post our first question. And of course, people can feel free to answer, and we're welcoming people, and they're introducing themselves. Some Aaron and Angela and Paul I see are all here. Hello, everyone. And please feel free to weigh in on these questions. Ed and I are going to talk about it. Ed will give us his thoughts, and everybody else can chime in. If you have questions too as we go, please feel free to post those, and we can talk about those too. So, the first question is, what's the first thing freelancers should do when it comes to marketing their businesses?
It's a great question. And by the way, I just want everyone to know that I don't think anything that I'm going to share with you today is not going to be, it's going to be new and shiny, So I just want to set the right expectation. The things we're going to be focused on today, I think, are strong, powerful, proven fundamentals. And we're going to stay away from shiny objects because I think there's plenty of that out there. And I personally believe that if what you're doing is chasing shiny objects, you're never going to really make real progress, especially with stuff like marketing. So if you're willing to sit through kind of some boring but what could be really powerful ideas, then I hope you stick around. Um, I, I I would say the number one thing is that you need to understand and face the fact that there's no getting around doing consistent marketing as a solo professional, period. I think we understand that intellectually, but emotionally, we're still thinking, yeah, but, what if this or what if that? Or we make up some kind of story in our head and there's just no way around it. I find that especially creatives, we feel that, well, if our work is great, if we have, if we know people, if we're good at what we do, if we have a ton of great clips, that's going to do it. And I have found that to not be true at all. That those things are great to have,
Mhm.
very useful, but that's not the number one thing. Again, I did very, very well, consistent, strong six figures every year when I was a freelancer for, gosh, I started in 2004. And again, my last client was in 2016. So 12 years, every year earning a six figure income, being very good at what I did, but many others were better than I was. But you know what I was really good at? Consistent marketing. So you have to accept the fact that there's no getting around it. You have to wear all the roles. Unfortunately, or all the hats. Unfortunately, there's no one else to do it. I think once you get to a point where you have a consistent business and you're willing to make an investment in, let's say, a virtual assistant who can help you with some of this, which I think is smart, that's fine, but you can't get around the fact that you need to do it. It's kind of like taxes. I'm a believer that you should hire an accountant to do your taxes once you get to a certain age. But
Right.
I'm also a big believer that you should do your taxes for a few years on your own so you understand the mechanics of it, even if you're not great with numbers. I
Mhm.
think it's important that this is going to sound weird, but I'm old, that you change the oil in your car. When I was in college and high school, I did all my oil changes, I did tune ups. And cars are now more complex. It's harder to do that. We're not set up for that. But I found that so valuable because if you can get under the hood and really understand how things work,
Mhm.
then you're in a better position to outsource some of that to others. So, but it's
Mhm.
still true. You can't get around the fundamentals. So I would say that that's the thing. You need to accept it at a cellular level. You need to accept it.
Yeah.
And then there's one more thing, and we can talk more about this, maybe as we go along, but I just want to
Mhm.
just mention it.
Mhm.
Counterintuitive, but clarity around your positioning. Before we even get to marketing tactics and strategies, if
Right.
you're not clear about how you're positioning yourself, all the tactics and strategies in the world are going to help you because there's you don't have strong fundamentals backing it up. It's like all that stuff flows from great positioning. But yeah, I think that's kind of secondary. I think the first thing is really behavioral, a commitment thing.
Well, let's talk about positioning. I mean, we're not really here to talk about positioning. That could be a whole conversation, but
Oh, sure.
I think people struggle because I feel like sometimes when we choose a lane, we feel like we're going to get like pigeonholed in that lane, in that positioning. And then we're like people are reluctant to do it because they feel like they're cutting off streams of business that they could otherwise pursue.
Mhm.
What do you think about that? I mean,
Uh,
I don't have an answer, but
I think that is a logical fallacy, and I'll explain why. You, as a one person business, can only take so many projects in any given year. You
Mhm,
can only have so many clients at any given time. Now, I'm just going to throw some numbers out there as an example. Let's
mhm,
say that realistically, more than 5 or 6 clients at any given time that are
mhm,
active. And how many projects? I mean, of course, it depends, but I don't know. Let's just say in 100 projects in a given year. Okay. 5 clients at a given time. Let's just say 100 because that's just even. That's
mhm,
your work capacity. Okay. We all have it. Your
mhm,
numbers might be different. It doesn't really matter. That is the maximum capacity you have as a solo professional, unless you decide to scale. But that's a different discussion. Even then, you still have a max capacity.
mhm,
So 5 clients, 100 projects. Take any market. Let's just say B2B tech. Michelle, I know you've done a lot there, right? Are you really limiting yourself by saying my focus is B2B tech, it's SaaS?
mhm,
And can you find, are there enough clients and opportunities there to land 100 projects in a year from 5 different clients? And I think the answer is very clear. Yes. Are you leaving opportunities on the table if you decide to just stick with that? Yeah, but no, because if you say, well, yeah, I'm B2B SaaS, but I also help service companies and I help nonprofits and sustainability. That's, first of all, it's all over the place. So as a prospect, your message is highly diluted. It feels like
mhm,
you're not focused. I don't have a lot of time. I got to find somebody who makes sense as quickly as possible as a marketing director. Um, if I'm reading that, I'm feeling like you're kind of everywhere and you don't really have a focus. And everything else being equal, I would rather talk to someone who seems to focus in my market or in the domain that I really need some expertise in. So
Mhm.
you're making their decision a lot easier. You're making your life simpler when it comes to marketing efforts because you know who to go after rather than try to spread yourself all over the place.
Mhm.
And you're also not limiting yourself at the same time in terms of the opportunities because there are plenty. Logical fallacy. Oh, but what about this? What if I
Right.
doesn't matter. There's plenty of business. My only exception would be, if your positioning is focused in such a narrow target market that there may be 15 to 20 potential prospects globally. That's
Mhm.
probably too narrow.
Mhm.
But everything else, there's no reason to do it. And guess what? You're still going to have opportunities from referrals, people coming in.
Yeah.
So, that
Yep.
you can still say yes to those even if they're outside of your area of
Right.
focus.
That's exactly what I was gonna say because I resisted kind of leaning into the B2B side of things for a long time. So I thought, oh, I'm just cutting, cutting myself off. But honestly, I still get asked to do things that fall outside of that. And then I have the decision, I have the choice to make. Do I want to do this thing? I could do it. Do I want to do it? But it doesn't mean that I'm not losing an opportunity by talking about the fact that I specialize in a particular niche. That's why I just wanted to get your take on that because I hear that a lot, and I know that there are people that are very, strongly opposed to niching and others who very much believe in it. So it's just a discussion that we have constantly. So
Well,
interesting.
and let me just throw in something else because I think there's a lot of confusion out there as to niching, target market, positioning. These are not, in my world, interchangeable. To me, positioning is about four elements and defining four elements to yourself first. What I do, for whom,
Mhm.
makes different, and why those differences would matter to that audience. So it's a combination of factors. Notice that only one of them refers to the target audience.
Mhm.
The other three aren't directly. In some cases, why it matters is it's tied to it, but you need to be able to define all four. And I find that most people don't do a very good job of being clear about all four of those.
Mhm.
Usually narrow it down to just one thing or maybe two, and then the others are completely unclear. Or so,
Mhm.
yeah, you need to get really clear on all four in order for your positioning to translate into clear messaging that actually
Yeah.
resonates.
Yeah, because you can also lean into different for me anyway, in consulting, I can say, "Well, I specialize in writing and media relations." I can lean into those things,
Hmm.
and I can be very clear and specific about those things instead of just saying, "Oh, I do PR," and that could mean anything. That could mean, like, any number of things. So, I feel like, being specific, yes, about the kind of the verticals and then also the types of work, it that has helped at least me in my own mind even, like, be clear about what kind of clients do I want, and then hopefully, I can talk that way and, people will get to know that and, that will be the kind of thing that I'm known for versus just like, "Oh, yeah, she does PR."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
Which is okay, but, like, no, I don't know. I don't do PR for everyone. I guess that's the thing I don't wanna be known for, so
Don't do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there's definitely types and kinds of clients or types of PR that I just would not really necessarily lean into, but it's interesting from that perspective when I know we're talking mostly I mean, you work mostly with writers, but on the PR side of things, when I wanna refer a client that isn't a fit for me, the first thing I wanna know is what industry do they specialize in? Because that's gonna be a little bit different too, like, if you're doing health and beauty for consumers, and I have a B2B manufacturing client that isn't a fit for me or I'm too busy to take on, that's not necessarily gonna be who I'm gonna want to refer somebody to, and they don't even sometimes say they don't say give you any clues about what kind of industries they work in unless you just happen to know. So it's a challenge. Let's go to question number 2. Oh, I was gonna say somebody did say it's possible to go too narrow on your niche, and you mentioned that that could be a possibility, but I
Yeah.
mean, I think, oh, okay. Well, I don't know. We'll come back to these questions, if we can. So, the second question is, what's the biggest mistake freelancers make regarding marketing themselves? And we've kind of started to talk about this, but what do you say to that?
It's hard to come up with one, right? We talked about some things that are definitely big mistakes. But I find that over and over again, the core, it's an issue of it not being a habit. If you don't turn this into a habit, you could be great at it, but if you're not doing it consistently, then you're going to fall into the feast or famine cycle, which I think many of us are very familiar with. And there's misconception out there that, well, yeah, it's easier said than done because I get really busy, and it's hard to do your marketing when you're busy, so I don't do it. But then my pipeline dry up, and then I have to scramble for work. So I understand what you're saying, but in practice, I haven't been able to make it work. And I understand that. I mean, listen, I've gone through this myself. I get it. I think it's so let me rephrase the answer. I think it's the biggest mistake is not having a plan for turning it into an adjustable habit, something
Mm,
you can dial up or down and adjust, because it's not a binary choice. It's not, well, I had somebody the other day, I was doing a marketing workshop, and she said, okay, and I helped her. She was really desperate for some clients who were working on some things. And I gave her some very simple things to do, and she landed 3 clients like a week, just
mhm,
usual. Okay. So that's
mhm,
not, those aren't typical results, and she said, okay, great. So listen, I'm going to come back to this material, in a few months, and start implementing it again in a few months, if and when I need more work. And I was trying to explain to her that's actually the wrong approach. You don't want to wait until you need more work to do this, because again, now you're going to be back in that feast or famine cycle. So the question becomes, how do I maintain the habit even during the really, really busy times?
yeah,
And there are many ways to do that. I know we're going to get into some of that, but
yeah,
for the purposes of this topic and this question, you need to turn into a habit, period.
yeah. Well, I mean, I can just, I think just looking at this year, which has been a little, you know, bit of a struggle for some folks. Um, I think about, like, based on, like, maybe the recession in 2008, 2009, how different, I my business was back then, and my marketing of my business, because I had a new baby, and I had 2 little kids, and, like, I was trying to make it all work, and I wasn't focused on marketing my business like I probably should have been. But, in other years that have been tough, and there have been, a few recessions here and there, um, it's made a huge difference because I've kinda stayed out in front of it and just consistently, constantly marketed. Even if I'm fully booked, I'm still trying to talk about, just stay out in front of people, basically, so that when they need you, you're there. That's definitely worked for me on LinkedIn, because 'cause I've had people say, "Well, I saw one of your posts, and then I saw another one of your posts, and then I, you know, picked up the phone or sent you an email or whatever." So, I do think that there's something to that, but it's really hard to convince people, because I think that, they're just I don't know, I don't know if they probably believe it, but they just don't practice it.
Yeah, it's just like any habit. I understand that I need to work out every day, and I want to. Or you and I were talking about, some social media platforms. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be consistent, but I'm not. And there could be several things at play there. In my case, it's I just haven't turned it into a habit. Now, I'm okay with that, by the way, just because not everything needs to be a top level priority. So I'd love to be more consistent on X or Twitter, on YouTube, but
Yeah.
I'm not, and I haven't developed a habit, and I know that's why it has nothing to do with the tech, or I don't know what to say. I got all that figured out. It's the habit,
Yeah.
but it's not a top priority for me right now. I want to, but it's not urgent.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Marketing is urgent.
well, once you find something that works for you, I mean, you could tweak your marketing, but if it's working, like, I think that's the most important thing. And I mean, I've had people tell me over the years, like, well, not everything is for everybody. If you don't love it, you're probably not going to do it consistently. So you kind of have to find, what you feel comfortable and good doing and what is going to work to bring clients your way. So, and I think that's different for everybody. And honestly, you could get all over the map. And that's what I think people do. It's like, oh, yeah, I could do, LinkedIn, I can do YouTube, I can do Instagram, I can do TikTok, I can do, so it's like, you're just like all over the place, and you're writing books and you're doing courses and you're doing live streams and you're doing, it's overwhelming. And then you could just spend all of your time doing that. But, that's not, that doesn't work either. So I think it's just finding that mix and balance, and it's not easy.
For sure.
I'm just looking to see if anybody has any thoughts on this. Everybody's saying balance, consistency, don't go too hard with your marketing. Someone is saying that can turn people off. I think that depends, on how you think about it, because obviously I do know people who I think probably go, maybe in some people's opinion, go too hard, but maybe for what they're trying to achieve, it's not too much, because you have to repeat yourself. I think that's another thing, and I've been thinking about that again too, right? Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
have to
and
keep
it's what's
saying
what's
it.
aggressive, right? I mean, something that might feel aggressive to you, might actually be fine and maybe the best thing to do. It's all relative. A lot of
Mhm.
people, and I've talked to a lot of freelancers who feel follow up. They feel weird about follow up. They feel
Yeah,
that's aggressive and annoying, and I'm
yeah.
bothering people. But you know what? There's a saying. This is way back from my corporate days, corporate sales. The money's in the follow up, and it's true. Sometimes you gotta follow up with people, not in an annoying way. There are many follow up take many flavors. You can just stay top of mind in a value added way by sharing a useful resource. And you're not like Michelle. I could send you, hey Michelle, I just read this. This was so cool. You enjoy it, especially the second point about X. Hope you're doing well. I actually just followed up with you by staying top of mind. I didn't need to ask for something. And it's
Yeah.
funny because this morning you and I were corresponding on LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
was running the DMs, and there was a friend of mine who sent me an article. It's like, oh, I think this is going to be right up your alley. And I read it, but then I was in your message and I responded to you,
Yeah.
and I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is for somebody else. But, he did a great job by staying top of mind with, hey, I thought of you when I read this. And those are such easy messages to send to not yet ready prospects. And most of us don't do it. So I don't know. Is that aggressive? I don't think so. Because that person, 8 months later, when they are finally ready, they could say,
Mhm.
Michelle, Bill here, we are ready to move on 3 white papers. What's your availability like? The
Mhm.
sales process has gone from this to this
Mhm.
because you've already been building trust. That is part of marketing.
Yeah.
So anyway, we can get into that if you want. I wanted marketing doesn't need to be one dimensional is the point here.
I think people look at it like they do sales, and they just kind of feel like it's kind of like makes them feel dirty, like makes them feel like, uncomfortable for some of us. I mean, and not everybody, but I think, when you go to work for yourself, you're not thinking, wow, I just can't wait to get out there and hard sell people and try to, like, and it doesn't have to be that way. But I think in our heads, it's just that sometimes it is that way. I know for me, that's definitely true. And I feel like, oh, I'm bothering them. Oh, I'm pestering them. It's like, no, no, I've tried to get over that, but I know that can be hard to do. So, Angela asked, whoops, I wanted to show Angela's question and I clicked on the wrong thing there. Okay. So here's just a question about social media. I think Angela's asking, what are your thoughts on sharing personal life updates? And I think based on your LinkedIn, sometimes you do tie in your personal with your work posts, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because look, people buy from people. And when you tie in personal stuff, you're just showcasing the fact that you're a real human with a real life.
Hmm.
And I think prospects really appreciate just kind of getting to know you and your personality a little more. Because you know what? The people who click with you and your vibe and your style, those are the ones who are going to become good clients, everyone else being equal. So if you say something, if you share something personal that somebody thinks is stupid, and that rarely happens, but let's just say that's good because you're repelling them. I wouldn't work for that person. So yeah, share some personal stuff. Obviously within reason, and there should be a balance, as you said, Angela.
Yeah, I've seen
Extent.
some things on LinkedIn I wish I hadn't seen, to be honest. Just a little too personal, but everybody
Yeah.
has to use their own best judgment, I guess, on that. So let's go to our next question. What should freelancers prioritize regarding marketing during slower periods? As I know a lot of freelancers this year have seen a slowdown in their work.
It's a great question. We could probably do 2 or 3 of these sessions on alone because we can now start breaking it down and getting really tactical and talking logistics and templates and very specific advice. But again, that stuff is not as important as the fundamentals. And here's another boring fundamental that I'm going to share with you, which
Mhm.
is all the time that you have right now that you're not using up on billable work needs to be spent on marketing. Let me give you a numerical example. Let's say that you dedicated to work 40 hours a week, just because that's the number we're familiar with. 40 hours a week, and you got 10 hours of billable work right now. That's not a lot. Okay. So if I did the math correctly, that leaves you with about 30 hours that are open right now. You don't have to follow this to the T. This is more of a concept, but I want everyone to really understand why this is so important. Okay. So 30 hours, I want you to take 10% of that and give yourself the gift, in this case, 3 hours, 10% of 30, 3 hours. Give yourself the gift of some free time away from your desk, away from the house if possible. Something fun that you usually don't give yourself permission to do. Go out for a hike a couple of times that week. Go work on an art project. Go kayaking. It can be free. There's none of these things cost money. Do things that you want to do that give you joy, but you just don't usually do because you are too busy or you just can't justify it.
Right.
All right. So we're now up to 13 hours that are accounted for, 10 billable, 3 free time. So what do we have? We have 27 hours still left. As drastic as this sounds, those 27 hours should be used on marketing.
Oh,
Period. It's your full-time job. It's your full-time job. Again, intellectually, I think many of us understand the reasoning. In practice, most of us don't do it. Instead of taking those 3 hours, we just lounge around feeling sorry for ourselves. And listen, I'm all for a good crying session, whatever, like get it out of your system. If you want to take a week, that's fine. But if you're serious, you got to get back on the saddle. And Now, it's not as crazy as it sounds when you realize that, a lot of this is going to be outreach. I'm going to come back to outreach here in a second. A lot of it could be, LinkedIn, other social media. A lot of it could be going out to some local networking events that are very targeted. Those take a long time. I got a coaching client right now. That's her preferred method. And we agreed that any of these, even if it's a luncheon, it's like a half a day thing when you add it all up.
It is.
Okay. So there are many different things you could do. That 27 hours sounds like a lot, but it's not 27 hours sending cold emails. Okay. I want you to switch it up, come up with a plan every week, and treat it really as your full-time role right now, because right now your billable work is only 10 hours in that example. I guarantee you that if you do that and you're committed to it, and I know this is hard, but if you do it, you will get back on track way sooner than you think. It takes commitment, it takes stamina, it takes a healthy mindset. You need to take care of yourself. In fact, you know what? Take 20% of that time for yourself. Instead of 3 hours, take 6 hours. It's an arbitrary number. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
just giving you need to have some sort of protocol and some sort of rules, because otherwise anything goes. So take the 6 hours. That's fine. But commit to doing this, and it won't be long before your pipeline starts to grow. So that's how you prioritize it.
Mhm.
But it starts with commitment, and it starts with a plan and a set of internal rules that you apply consistently as best as you can, while giving yourself some grace, but not too
Mhm.
much grace.
Yeah. Somebody Sarah's asking if you sing, Broadway show tunes to your dog.
If I do what now?
Sing Broadway show tunes to your dog.
Yeah, that's an inside joke. Thanks, Sarah. I do not. Sarah knows that I hate musicals. That would be
Oh.
torture. Yeah,
Oh,
I
but
would not use those 6 hours to watch Chicago or Cats or, I don't know, naming the Sound of Music.
No, but most people are saying that they do, find inspiration in taking breaks, and I think here's the thing for me anyway, I sometimes forget that I can take a break because I work for myself, but I'm like, "I need to be at my desk." But no, if I don't have client work in that period of time or that, morning of the week or whatever, I can get up and leave. I can leave the house. I can, make a plan was to meet somebody or do something. So that's the thing. It's like sometimes in my own head, even I am not like allowing myself that luxury of doing that stuff because it does seem like a luxury to me because I think I'm just like,
It does.
I mean, I've been on my own for so long, but I still have that mindset where I have to be at my desk from 9 to 5 or whatever it is. So, yeah, I feel like I have to remind myself, like, oh no, it's okay for you to do that thing.
Go
So,
out, have lunch with a friend, do those things they usually have to say no to, say yes to. By the way, notice how flexible this is. Like, if you wanted to take a whole week or 2 weeks off, like, look, I'm going to completely disengage from this. And I know I need to start doing this, but I need a mental break.
yeah,
Emotionally, I'm all for that. That's not the point. Is once you get back,
yeah.
you need to be all in. So I'm all for all in on the rest and detachment, and all in when you're back at work. I think it's a healthier way of approaching it, rather than half in on both. And then you're out trying to disengage, but then you're worried and feeling like you should be doing this other thing instead. That's not helpful.
I think that's a really important point because it's really hard to be focused on whatever it is, like you wanna be all in mentally or, whatever on whatever it is that you're doing at that moment instead of being, like, out taking a walk and thinking like, "Oh, no, I should have been sending out those cold emails," or like, you're trying to market and you're thinking about, "Oh, no, I wish I was, out taking a walk." Like, it's just very easy, I think, to not engage in the moment, whatever it is that you're doing, and that's what we kind of want to strive for, but I don't know the secret to that. So that's just
That's
something
another
that
freelance chat.
So let's go to our next question. What if freelancers get overwhelmed regarding their marketing efforts? What should they focus on? And this is something I think I can say happens to me. And I think, again, you talk about having a plan, and I just feel like a lot of times we're just like ping pong all over the map. Just, I don't know.
I mean, this is a human thing, not a freelancing thing, because there's so many applications of this concern in the solutions. Um, but I would say the thing that has helped me and my coaching clients the most with overwhelm is to
Hmm.
pick one thing, one very simple thing. And
Hmm.
it should be so ridiculously small and simple that not doing it would make you feel a very negative emotion like shame or guilt, embarrassment. So let's go back to I only got 10 hours of billable work, and I'm just so overwhelmed by this idea of where do I go? Where do I start with my marketing? There's so many things I could do. I hear this all the time. So many things I could do. And there's so many gurus out there telling you should do this, not that, or this, or that, not this, that I'm just overwhelmed. So I'm doing nothing. That's all of, I mean, if I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. So what you do is you pick one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Something that, as you think about it, makes sense for you and your situation. So pick that one thing. And let's just say that it's, all right, I got to get back on LinkedIn and I need to start connecting with the right people. Commenting, being active, maybe sharing, some posts. So, but that's a lot of things, right? But because
Right.
that's all under the umbrella of LinkedIn. Okay. What one thing on LinkedIn could you do next week? Give yourself the rest of the week off. It's Thursday. You know what? Tomorrow I'm going to take off the weekend. I'm going to clear my head. I'm going to get away from all of this. On Monday, here's my commitment. You need to write this down. I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes, first thing in the morning when I get to my desk. And I'm going to do the following things on LinkedIn. I got 30 minutes. The clock's ticking. I'm going to connect. I'm going to find 3 relevant prospects and I'm going to send them a connection request. I'm going to find a post that I can write a meaningful comment on. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but enough. But don't make the comment, "Oh, that's great." "Oh, this is so useful." Something a little bit more meaningful. And then I'm going to like 3 other posts that I think are useful. And by the way, with these last 2 where you comment and like, they should be from people who could be either sources of referral, um, potential clients, past clients, people who have worked with you before, rather than just other freelance writers. I mean, there's a time and a place for that. I get it,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
we're trying to get some business. So, and that's it. That's it. Here's what's going to happen. If you do that, you're going to show yourself that you're the kind of person who follows through. You focused on one thing, you had a plan. So it wasn't just 30 minutes on LinkedIn. That's not specific enough. You had the protocol. You're going to go in, you're going to get that done in 30 minutes. The clock is going to keep you from going down rabbit holes. You're going to get it done. At the end, you're going to feel great about yourself. And you're going to pat yourself on the back and you're going to say, I'm the kind of person who does what she says she's going to do. That's going to feed your identity. When you do that, you feel better about yourself. Your confidence starts going up. And of course, what are you probably going to do? I bet you're going to do another thing that afternoon, either on LinkedIn or maybe send out a cold email or something, because now you're on a roll. You've just proven to yourself that you can actually do some of this. And you know what? Maybe the next day you'll repeat this. And now you really have momentum and
Hmm.
you do a little bit more
Hmm.
and a little bit more and a little bit
Hmm.
more. I'm not saying commit to those other things. All I want you to commit is to that one simple thing for 30 minutes. It could be one activity, it could be one thing, but set a timer and just commit to that. So I read about this years ago. It's called The Golden Push-Up, and I wish I remembered the person's name, the author's name, but it was a short little book. In The Golden Push-Up it's a metaphor, but you could literally just do this. If you want to start a workout program, commit to getting on the floor this afternoon, making it the
Mhm,
top thing on your to-do list,
mhm.
and the task is do one push-up. That's it. Now, what's going to happen when you do one push-up? You're already on the floor. You're probably just going to go ahead and do a couple more. And then you're like, you know what? I think I can do a couple. And you're probably going to do as many as you can. And then you get up and that's it. You're done. And the momentum and the good feelings that creates just carry you through the rest of the day and can
Mhm.
actually start a revolution in your business or your exercise program, whatever it might be. So I'm going to get off my soapbox for a minute, but does that resonate? I mean, am I crazy here? Has anyone had an experience like this where they just kind of focused on one thing and did it?
Well, let's see if anybody, chimes in with anything, but I'm just gonna say, I love that you're talking about LinkedIn because I think for me, like, for a long time, it was like, "Oh, yeah, I need to spend more time on LinkedIn." Well, doing what? Like, I can only post I'm only gonna post, like, a few times a week, right? I'm probably not gonna post every day, and that's not really where the magic happens anyway. It's really interacting, like you said, with people, that might be clients or might be referral sources or might be in a certain industry, things like that. And that I've actually seen that work, but it's very hard to like stay focused because when I get over there, I'm like, oh yeah, my friend posted, oh yeah, this guy said something really smart. So I'm gonna, and it's like you just get again, it's the focus, it's the lack of focus, I think, that makes it so hard.
Yeah, and there's so many things that are useful that continuing with the LinkedIn example, like maybe it's, hey, I'm going to connect with 3 people who are relevant prospects and evaluate my headline and my about section. Or or maybe that feels too overwhelming. I'm just going to evaluate my headline. I want to look at it fresh and see how I can improve it. That's it. 2 tasks. A lot of things we can all do. I think many of us, myself included, don't look at our profile very often.
Right.
I did the other day and I thought, oh my God, I still have all this junk in here. This is no longer me or relevant, or I've moved on, or my messaging is now different. So maybe do a quick audit. I don't care what the thing is.
Mhm.
I just care that it gets you back in the game.
Yeah. Well, I think social media, we can waste a lot of time just, having just messing around
What?
like
That's not a problem. That's not a problem for me.
That's the I mean, that's the thing is social media is good for marketing our businesses. However, like, it can also be just rabbit holes and that it's way too easy. That's why I feel like almost leaning a little bit away from social and looking at what can you do with your website? What can you do with your blog? What can you
Oh,
do?
that
Can
could
you
be rabbit holes too, though.
it can be.
So
It
it's
can
really the
be.
timer thing, and being strict about that. So sometimes oh yeah, I know what you mean about the timer, but then the timer goes off and I keep going. You know what I do? Make it so that it bumps into a hard stop. Like you got a client call or you got to go pick up your kid at school, or then you really have accountability.
Yeah.
So yeah, make it so you have to stop.
I don't do the timer, and I probably should make myself, do that. I know a lot of people that have been part of Freelance Chat use the Pomodoro technique, isn't that with the timer? I think. So, but
Yeah.
I haven't really done that, and I probably should be a little bit more disciplined about it, and I still haven't found I don't know, sometimes I find what works on LinkedIn, but I don't know if I found the exact, like, formula that works, over there for me, but I still think commenting and engaging is probably as important or more important than posting, so,
You need a mix. Yeah, for sure.
so let's see. People like to make to-do list, they like yes, they agree with the focusing, starting with an outline, um,
Luke
yeah,
said amen to the one thing strategy. Yeah. So I think we kind of understand that and agree intellectually with it. We've seen
mhm,
it in other
mhm,
aspects of our lives, but we forget that it applies here as well.
Yeah, well, I think yes, it's a problem. I think I almost feel like our focus is gone, and there are reasons, like, for it just in the world that we live in, like, we've just kind of, it's been harder to focus for a lot of us, I think, for a lot of reasons, but that's not an excuse, and I just think we need to kinda try to, at least some of the time be a little bit more disciplined and steer ourselves back toward, the right path for our business, because again, if we're not doing these things, I don't know, like, if we can hope to have a pipeline that's full and a full workload all the time. So
Mhm.
let's put up our last question, which I'm sure we've kind of touched on this anyway, but we're gonna post it and talk about it. How can freelancers be more consistent with their marketing? That's what we're trying to do.
Well, I'm going to repeat the C word, commitment. It really starts with commitment. I find that when I look at people who are not consistent and they're struggling as a result, it almost always stems from a lack of commitment. So everything starts with commitment. Because if you're committed, I mean, I'll give you another extreme example of commitment. I know it sounds dramatic, but again, if like imagine if your kids were home starving and you had to find work, if you had to land a client who could pay you a deposit right away so you could buy groceries, you would be extremely committed as a parent, right? Anyone who's got kids, you know that. I mean, like, look, I'll eat pasta and tuna fish, but that's just me. But if now I have dependents, so yeah, you got to find a way to commit. You really have to commit, like, in your heart. So that's the first thing. Um, and honestly, from there, I absolutely love James Clear's Four Laws of Behavior Change from his book Atomic Habits. If you haven't read Atomic Habits, I can't recommend that book enough. It is life changing, and it's based on these four laws. The whole book is based on these four laws of behavior change. And the exercise I have many of my clients do is to take a sheet of paper and put it in landscape mode and create four quadrants. And on the top left, you write down the first law, which is obvious. Top right, second law, which is attractive. Bottom left, third law, which is easy. And bottom right quadrant is going to be satisfying. That's the fourth law. And what I want you to do is, when it comes to the problem of consistent marketing, doing your marketing consistently, I want you to start in the top left quadrant with attractive, or obvious rather. So write down all the ways you can make these activities more obvious. I think many times that's the problem, right? We kind of get to our desk and we check email, and then we go to LinkedIn, and then we go back to email, and then we get interrupted and we check news. And I got to get on this client project, right? And it's like fires and desires. I should coin that. I just made that up. Fires and desires, right? And we don't have a mechanism for making the marketing obvious until the end of the day, when we feel the shame that we just didn't get it done. Oh man, I forgot. But it's time to make dinner, or I got to go. Right? So obvious. How can you make it obvious? Can you set a timer? Can you put a slew of post-it notes all over your monitor the night before? It says marketing, 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 whatever. I don't care. Make it so that you can't help but stumble into the reminders. Brainstorm a list of ideas. As silly, again, brainstorming is anything goes, right? As silly as some of them might be, don't just let it get on the page. The
Mhm.
second law is attractive. I hate marketing. Okay, I get it. I will tell you that one of the reasons I've always done marketing consistently is I I love marketing. That's my favorite part. That's my favorite part. I've only met a few people who feel the same way, but I love it. I love it, love it. I love it more than doing the client work. I won't get into why, but I just do. I just naturally do. Okay. So I don't expect you to love it like I do, but how can you make it attractive? How can you make exercise attractive? We're designed to conserve energy. Working out is not a natural thing that everyone just automatically wants to do. Why is the gym full? These people have found a way to make it attractive. Okay, translate that into marketing. How can I make my marketing more attractive? I don't know. Could I make it so that it's stuff that I actually don't mind doing and actually like? Can I make it fun? How can I make it fun? Brainstorm. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You brainstorm ideas that are going to work for you. Next one is easy. Okay. By the way, notice how these progress in the
Mhm,
order in which you do it, right? It's got to be obvious. You got to stumble into, oh, the post-it note. Yes. Thanks for the reminder. The next one is attractive. I haven't done it yet, but it's attractive enough that I'm compelled to do it. So this next one is easy. As I'm doing it, it should feel as easy as possible.
mhm,
So many way. Again, brainstorm a list of ideas in that quadrant. I gave you one a little bit earlier, 30 minutes. That's it. That's easy. I can do 30 minutes.
mhm.
But Ed, when you said I had to do like the rest of the afternoon, that did not sound easy to me. Okay, fine. Make it easy. Okay. All the different ideas. And by the way, attractive and easy. And I find that there's a lot of overlap between those two. So when you're doing the exercise, don't overthink it. I don't know. Is this easy or just put them on both? That's fine.
Yeah.
And then finally, satisfying. So again, we're kind of moving progressively through an activity. Satisfying is when you're done, usually. I guess you're doing it, maybe, but it's
Mhm,
usually kind of a post event feeling. And this goes back to patting myself on the back, feeding my identity, having
mhm.
that internal conversation with myself that, you know what? I did that. I've been more consistent this week with my marketing than I have in my 22 years of being a freelancer. And that is amazing. Maybe having a streak chart on your wall, with a bunch of little boxes, and you're trying to maintain that win streak. Every day you do your marketing, even if it's just 30 minutes, you check that box. And now you got 5 of them. That's more than you've ever done. And you want to keep up the win streak. That is so satisfying. For many of us, just kind of checking things off, crossing them off feels
Mhm,
amazing. So if that's the case for you,
mhm.
that belongs in the satisfying box. So again, to recap, starts with commitment. Without commitment, none of this other stuff is going to work. You're just not going to do it. Once you have full commitment at the level of my children are starving and I have to do this to feed my kids, then it's the 4 laws. Brainstorm and then don't get overwhelmed by all the ideas. My suggestion is pick 1 or 2 from each of the quadrants, highlight them, and focus on those to start. But keep that list handy because sometimes you're going to need a little bit of variety. Those are all tools for ensuring that you get this stuff done consistently.
I mean, first of all, that explains a lot that you love marketing, right? Because again, back to like if we don't love it, it's gonna be a struggle for us to do it. That's not an excuse, but that explains a
Yeah.
lot. Someone is saying, Laura is saying, I know ads work through market downturns. What can we do when things feel hard in the market to keep us going?
I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it really starts with commitment. But I'm going to actually take a step back from commitment, Laura. I don't. This isn't meant to be like a philosophical session, but this is really important. I would recommend strongly that you have an honest conversation with yourself about your big why. What is your purpose for doing this, for doing this business, for freelancing? You need to revisit that. And I like to do this with a journal. And one easy way to do that is to go back to the early days. And I want you to put yourself in that state. Remember what it felt like? I still remember very clearly June 1st, 2006, my first day on my own. I mean, the sky was way bluer, the air was crisper, everything felt brighter, sharper. I wasn't really in a cloud. And bring yourself back to that moment and relive it. And then ask yourself, okay, there was a reason why I decided to do that then, or reasons. What were the biggest reasons? Okay, so write those down. And then go fast forward to today. Why do I still do what I do? What drives me? What are the real core reasons besides money that I do what I do? Because if you don't have a really clear purpose, everything that we've talked about today is not going to matter, because you're not going to stick to it. And that's actually before commitment, right? So I talked about commitment as kind of the starting point, but really it's your big why that drives this. And then once you get clear on that, you can really make the commitment that's going to carry you through the hard times. So I know that may not be the answer, Laura, that you're hoping for. um, but it's so important. And I think if we skip that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And you're right. I've been through a few of these recessions. So, Michelle, you and I went through the great financial crisis of 2008, 2009. That was absolutely terrible. It's hard for me to talk about it without getting emotional. It was
Yeah.
that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that I did, what I went through was really, really hard. Um,
Yeah.
Pretty much completely drained my savings. It was just bad. So I get it. I get it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying man up. I'm not going to tell you any of those things because that's not helpful. I'm saying come back to your fundamentals, your reasons for, your big why. Once you get clear there, you may find that, you know what, this doesn't make sense for me anymore. I need to pivot, or I need to change some things, or I need to make a complete overhaul here. But you won't know that until you get real with yourself.
Mhm. No, I really like that a lot because I do remember when I started out on my own, I do remember the way that felt. And for me, it's freedom and flexibility. Those are my big whys. I mean, that's, obviously I'm a professional. I'm going to work. I want to work under my own like terms and conditions. And some people say, well, clients, you have a lot of bosses. Well, you still have a lot more, I think, freedom and flexibility to figure out who you wanna work with and, what's working for you and, all of that than you would when you have to, go into an office every day. So that is what I think about whenever I get kinda downtrodden, which happens to everybody. I think it's pretty
It
normal to
does.
have those periods. So, but you're right. I mean, this has been a weird and tough year, and I don't think we're not really technically in a recession, so I think people are, like, just confused about what's going on, but I remember the 2008, 2009, I'll never forget that, and that was a terribly difficult time.
Well, I mean, I suspect that we are in a recession and we won't know it for a while. We were in a recession in 2008. We didn't know about it until the fall. So we might be in one. I mean, I'm not saying this to be negative, but I'm because it doesn't really matter. Like you're in charge of
No,
your own economy.
it doesn't.
But I'm only saying that to explain to everyone it's hard for everybody. It's not you. It's not
Mhm.
something that's wrong with you. It's a weird market right now. But just
Yeah.
like any market, we're going to come out of this at some point.
Yes.
You just
Yeah.
gotta like focus on fundamentals now. And you know what? If you do that, I think you're going to come out of this way stronger than you did going in.
Right. Because you wanna be positioned and you wanna be visible when things do pick up. That's what I keep thinking about and
Yeah.
trying to remind people that ask me or that I know that work for themselves. I'm like, "Well, it's not gonna last forever." My clients will say that to me too. It's like, "Well, like, we don't know exactly when things are gonna, you know, perk up, but it's gonna happen." So what goes down comes back up, and that's, pretty much always true, I think. So, anyway, I think we just have to, try to stay out there and even if it's tough sometimes, because it can be tough. But I know we're past our time, and I so appreciate you being here, and I can't thank you enough, and, I think everyone should follow you and connect with you on LinkedIn if they don't already. And I just really appreciate all of your time and wisdom. And thank you so much, Ed.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Appreciate you hosting me, and thanks for everyone for the great questions. I hope you found it helpful. I enjoyed the conversation for sure.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.